All right, welcome to another edition of Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger with you on KMBR's YouTube channel. And of course, we're with you Monday through Friday, either on the radio or on KMBR's YouTube channel. Long day in Santa Clara. We got a great hour for you. What we're going to do in this hour, bottom of the hour, Nick Hamilton's going to stop by. He is from Nightcast Media down in Southern California. They cover the Rams. And we'll get his thoughts on the matchup right around 6:30. Towards the end of the hour, I got a great text today from on one of the streams, or actually one of the comments in the chat. Somebody sent me a guy by the name of KK45 sent me a pretty good question about Kyle Shanahan. We'll get to. And then next segment, we'll get into why does everybody seem to like, as soon as the Niners lose, it's like Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, and we'll talk about who actually deserves the blame for Sunday's loss to the Vikings, which was yesterday, even though it seems like a long time ago. So yeah, we'll get into that in the next segment. But this first segment, I want to get into, what happened today down in Santa Clara, because I was down in Santa Clara at practice today, had a chance to go in the locker room, talk to a number of the players, had a chance to talk to Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, a bunch of guys. And we'll just go through the 9 or 10 things that happened today down in Santa Clara in this first segment to make sure all you Niner fans are totally up to date on what's going on in Ninerland. The first thing is that Deebo Samuel did not practice. So Deebo didn't practice. He's not going. He's not going Sunday against the Rams. He probably is going to be out probably a number of weeks. My guess is at least 2 or 3, maybe more. But he definitely did not practice today, and he is out for the Rams game on Sunday for sure. Now, that was the bad news. The good news is everybody else did practice today. In fact, Talanoa Hufanga, who's trying to come back from a ACL tear from last year, I believe in November. He was a full go today at practice. And when we asked Shanahan about it, when he hit the podium afterwards, he says he'll likely play in Los Angeles. So they're gearing up for Hufanga to play. And when Shanahan was asked, what do you really miss about Hufanga? What does he bring you that you don't have? And it was interesting. He said communication on the back end. This guy's one of the best communication guys they have back there. And after watching the 49ers lose to the Vikings, communication on the back end was like kind of a major problem. They couldn't communicate. Mooney and Jair got burned on the Naylor 10-yard or the 10-yard touchdown pass. I think in the fourth quarter. Also the third down, the 3rd and 7, where they found where the quarterback Darnold found the receiver on the sideline wide open, went for 11 yards on 3rd and 7, and they moved the chains on the final drive where the Niners are trying to get off the field. And if they had gotten off the field, they would have gotten the ball with about 9 minutes left, down 6, needing a touchdown to win it. But a touchdown in a regular PAT would have won it for the 49ers. Instead, they give up this first down. The communication on the pass was horrendous. It was a 3-1 bunch up on the right side, and the Niners had Renardo Green, Demo Lenore, and Mooney Ward. So you could argue they had their 3 best cover guys all on that side of the field, and still Renardo Green basically got picked. He lost track of down and distance, and he allowed an easy pitch and catch on a key, probably the biggest play of the game. The key 3rd down to start that drive, and eventually the Vikings would drive the ball down the field and kick a field goal to make it a 2-possession game and essentially make it over. The Niners would drive the field themselves. They would settle for a field goal and then tried the onside kick, and to no avail. So that's how the thing wound up yesterday in Minneapolis. But Fonga's back, and his big thing is that he communicates, and hopefully they won't have communication breakdowns with him out there. We'll see. The other thing that we talked to Kyle today in Santa Clara. He said he did not watch any of the Deebo Samuel Bleacher Report show. He kind of laughed at the notion of it. He's like, I get to see that show every day. And of course, that was last night's show that featured Brandon Ayuk, and it was decent. I mean, the interview girl, was really trying to ask a bunch of questions to, try to get this thing lively. It was kind of low energy. I mean, it's the Debo show, and it looked like he wanted to take a nap. I mean, he looked like he didn't even want to be there. And Ayuk was even more tired looking. He was like, So I don't know that it was Bleacher Report thought it was that great, but Kyle also must not have thought it was that great because he didn't watch it. Kyle was asked about, they are running less play action passes than they ran last year. And he was asked why. Is there some reason for it? And he mentioned that at least in week 2 against the Vikings that, play action doesn't work against blitzes, against 5-man and 6-man pressures. And that's what, really makes up the Viking defense. They play a ton of zone, but there was a lot of 5- and 6-man pressures on Sunday. And, and I think this really stems back to a couple years ago in the NFC Championship game when the Eagles didn't really honor the Brock Purdy play action fakes. And if a defense is not going to honor the play action fakes, then you're basically just wasting a second and a half and giving your opponent's pass rush a real good chance to sack your quarterback. Because if they're not going to honor the play action fake, that means they're not playing the run. They're just playing the pass. They're going to react to the run on the way to the quarterback. But why have your quarterback carry out a fake that takes time when nobody's honoring that fake, and it just makes it more likely that he's going to be sacked? So that was kind of what Shanahan, the genesis, the breakdown of what he had to say about the play action. He's like, it doesn't really work against, blitzes, against 5-man pressure, against 6-man pressure. And that's why in his mind, the numbers are down. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that if you don't establish the run, it's really hard to go play action off of that. And then if teams don't really believe that you're going to run, then the play action fake they're probably not going to honor it. And if they don't honor it, you're just wasting time, so I think that has a lot to do with it. I asked him about Renardo Green and Malik Mustafa, if they're getting close to more playing time. And Shanahan seemed to indicate that they were. He just said that they're all, that they're both one snap away from being thrust into a major role, that he likes what they've put on film thus far. And he thinks they've got a lot of potential. I personally think with the Niners working out 3 slot corners, I think there's a pretty good likelihood that either Demo or Renardo is going to start opposite Mooney or both, I should say. And Yadam's probably going to the bench. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but when the Niners are working out multiple slot corners, the slot corner is Demo Lenore. So what does that mean? Does that mean that he's not going to be the slot corner? Maybe. It may mean that he's going to move outside. It also could mean that Demo's going to move outside. And Demo's a great tackler in the box. So I don't know that you want to move him outside. But I get the sense that you're going to see the trio of Mooney Ward, Demo Lenore, the obvious 1-2, and then Renardo Green, I think, is going to move ahead of Isaac Yadam as that third corner. We'll see if it's this week, but I think that's what's likely to happen in the weeks ahead. Kyle also was asked about the Rams, and he said, hey, man, this is a tough spot. Rams just got blown out by Arizona. They're 0-2. They played really well in week 1 against Detroit. They just lost. So they're going to bring a level of desperation into this week 3 game. And especially teams are always desperate when they're 0-2, but they're really desperate when they're 0-2 and they just got their doors blown off and gave up 40 to a divisional opponent. So look for the Rams. Whatever the Rams can fire effort-wise, they will in this game. They'll bring the house. They'll bring everything they got. By the way, it's supposedly going to be like 60-70% Niner fans at SoFi. So the Niner fans will invade the South again and turn it into Levi's South. 2 last notes. Kyle said that he feels like the Rams offense and the Vikings offense are similar. So maybe that helps the 49ers a little bit get ready for Stafford and company this week. And then the final thing he said is that Jacob Cowing, despite the fact that he muffed the punt, they haven't given up on Jacob Cowing. and they're going to put him back there and they're going to give him another opportunity. But I'll say this. I mean, Kyle said you don't get endless opportunities. So if he muffs another one, he's probably one away from losing the job. If he muffs two, he probably loses that opportunity to be the punt returner. So that's reality in today's NFL. So they're going to stay with Cowing. And in fact, I actually think they're going to wind up using Cowing more from scrimmage in the games ahead because he's their vertical threat. He's their space creator. He's the guy that can take the top off the defense and create room for Debo and Ayuk and Kittle underneath. And if you watch the film of Niners Vikings, there was not a lot of room for Kittle, Debo, or Ayuk underneath. They were being hugged up on by the Vikings defensive backs, and there was very little space there. And that's, I think, a big part of why Brock Purdy, you could argue, had some struggles in this game, is that there were an awful lot of 50-50 balls. There was an awful lot of passes that the defender was right there. And my son, Kevin, has tweeted out some interesting data on that we'll refer to before the end of the hour. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a timeout right here, and we're going to come back in the next segment, and we're going to talk a little bit about why the Niner fan base always blames Shanahan and Purdy, and who actually deserves to be blamed more than Shanahan and Purdy for the loss on Sunday. Bottom of the hour, Nick Hamilton will stop by from Nightcast Media, and we'll get a preview of Rams-Niners from Nick. And then we will talk a little bit about a comment from KK45, who sent us a comment earlier today on a chat. And we'll also talk a little bit as well about a couple other Niner-related nuggets before we get out of here at the end of the hour. So that's what we got planned. So we'll take a timeout right here. We're going to come back. Why do Niner fans always go right to blaming Shanahan and Purdy, and who actually deserves the blame for the loss to the Vikings yesterday? We get into it next as we break things down. It's Niners Nightly. And we're glad you're here, and we're glad to be here. And of course, we will be here Monday through Friday on Niners Nightly on the regular, giving you all the latest from Santa Clara and talking 49er football 5 nights a week. So we'll continue with a little discussion about the blame game next on Niners Nightly. All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger with you. Hope you're having a great September the 18th, the Wednesday edition of Niners Nightly. And bottom of the hour, Nick Hamilton's going to stop by and we'll preview Niners Rams with Nick. But I want to talk about just Niner fans. And it just seems like as soon as the 49ers lose a game, all of a sudden, Shanahan, they go, Niner fans in huge number go nuclear. Everything's a nuclear approach here. Shanahan's not the guy. He needs to be fired. We won't be satisfied with anything other than a Super Bowl, or he needs to go. And then the Brock Purdy hate is like, all of a sudden, it's like he doesn't have a great game, and it's like Brock's not the guy. And they still need a quarterback. And Brock can't do this, and Brock can't do that, and Brock's the reason we're losing, and Brock. And it's like immediately Shanahan and Purdy take the blame. Now, part of it's natural. The NFL, if you watch an NFL game, if you're watching on the TV copy, they show the play, they show the quarterback. They show the play, they show the head coach. They show the play, they show the quarterback. They show the play, they show the head coach. I mean, this is basically how the thing is televised. So it's kind of logical that lots of people will fascinate on the head coach and the quarterback. I think that's part of it because you see images of Shanahan and images of Purdy, and you see them repeatedly throughout the game. They may show a defensive coordinator here or there. They may show another player here or there, but ultimately it's the quarterback and the head coach. The quarterback and the head coach. The head coach and the quarterback. Unless it's the Chiefs, then it's the quarterback, the head coach, and Taylor Swift and Kelsey, Swift, Kelsey's mom, Mahomes, and Andy Reid. Everybody else, it's just the quarterback and the head coach, except for Kansas City. They actually show the tight end and his girlfriend. But you look at this game, and you say, I do understand that, it wasn't. You could argue that Minnesota outcoached Kyle Shanahan. Go ahead, you can make that argument. You could make the argument that Brock Purdy didn't play one of his better games. You can make that argument. I wouldn't even necessarily push back all that hard on either. I didn't love the game from Brock Purdy's perspective, and I don't think it was one of his better games. He turned it over twice. He took 6 sacks. He converted 20% of his third downs into first downs. They went 2 for 10 on that money down on third down as far as conversions. I thought Brock Purdy held the ball too long on 2 or 3 occasions on a couple of plays. But at the end of the day, we're still talking about a guy who threw for 300 yards, completed 75% of his actually 78% of his passes. He was only one of 3 quarterbacks in week 2 to throw for 300. Purdy, Geno Smith, and Goff. Those were your only 300-yard passers in week 2. There were only 5 or 6 guys in the entire league that had a completion percentage over 75%. And, Brock completed a really high percent. I mean, what was his final percentage? I mean, it was like 79%. I mean, it was one of the highest percentages in the game. Now, there were other guys who completed a high percentage, but he also completed a high percentage. So and he was one of only 2 quarterbacks, him and Geno Smith, who did both, who completed, over 75% of their passes and threw for over 300 yards. So all these people losing their mind, Brock wasn't this, Brock wasn't that. He was one of only 2 quarterbacks this week who completed 75% or better. He completed 78% and who threw for 300 plus yards. He threw for 319. One of 2. And this was his bad game. So, I mean, I don't think Brock Purdy or Kyle Shanahan were like on the top of the list of why the Niners lost. So I thought, you know what? I watched the game. Let's talk about why the Niners actually did lose. And this is not a ranking or any, I'm not putting this, the number one thing is not like, oh, that's the number one reason they lost. I just made a list. No, okay, let's just roll down the list. None of the Niner receivers got very good separation at all. I mean, really not at all. In fact, my son tweeted out, Brock Purdy leads the NFL in aggressive throw percentage, AGG percentage, at 24.6%. Okay, so AGG percentage tracks the percentage of passing attempts thrown into coverage where a defender is within 1 yard or less of the receiver. So there you go. He leads the NFL in these throws. Among the top 8 quarterbacks in this category, AGG percentage, Brock Purdy has the highest quarterback rating and the highest completion percentage. So in other words, he's got a high completion percentage. He's got a high quarterback rating. He's throwing for yards, but he's throwing it into tight windows, and his receivers aren't getting separation. And that's why he leads the NFL in aggressive throw percentage. As I said, 24.6% of the time, he's throwing his pass attempts into coverage where the defender is 1 yard or less away from the 49ers receiver. I think it's a very, very revealing statistic. It really shows that, A, Niner receivers are getting very little separation, and Brock Purdy, despite that, is still playing at a really, really high level. So, I mean, I thought that was interesting, really interesting. So that's number one. That's the first thing that stood out to me when I watched the film. Wow. 49ers offensive weapons. And I don't know if it's because there's no CMC and they're not playing cowing and that's their speed. But their offensive weapons, whether it be Kittle or the receivers, they're not getting separation from the D. Brandon Ayuk in 2 games has been pretty much a non-factor. He's caught a couple balls, but I mean, he doesn't look anything like the player from a year ago. So you don't have CMC, and Ayuk doesn't look like the guy he was last year. And your receivers are getting very little separation. So all these reasons, I think, are why they lost. Then you mix in a punt block. Doesn't help. You mix in a muffed punt. Now, granted, the Niners, fell on that muff punt, but still, not great special teams. A punt blocked and a muff punt in the same game. The Niner offensive line, to me, looked very confused by Flores' game plan, where he sent 5, he sent 6, he sent 4, he sent 3, he sent 3, he dropped 8, he sent 4, he dropped 7. He came with a 5-man pressure. He came with a bunch of 6-man pressures, especially on key downs. And the 49ers offensive line with the rookie at right guard looked like they had a couple miscommunications that led to some broken plays. So the Niners offensive line looked confused. And I thought they looked confused throughout the night. I mean, and it wasn't just Pooney. Trent Williams and Aaron Banks got caught up in a sack where neither guy blocked the outside guy. They kind of both went inside and let Cashman, the linebacker, just come flying off the edge. He ricocheted off of Trent right into Purdy for a sack. Cashman was amazing, by the way. He had 13 tackles. But miscommunication along the offensive line. Niners O-line looked confused. Niners defensive tackles on paper should have dominated this game. You could make an argument that Hargrave and Malik Collins should have dominated Brandell and Bradbury and especially Ed Ingram. These guys got worked the week before by Dexter Lawrence. You could have parked my Chevy Tahoe between Sam Darnold and Collins and Hargrave all afternoon. They didn't get close to him hardly at all. And they had, on paper, Collins and Hargrave should have dominated. And they either got dominated or accomplished very little. Major reason they lost. Devondre Campbell is not Dre Greenlaw. And it shows. And the Niners couldn't stop the run. 8.2 yards a carry for Ty Chandler? You got to be kidding me. So Devondre Campbell, the run fits. That was very inconsistent. Leonard Floyd had a great first game against the Jets. Did he even play in this game? Only because I saw him out there did I know he played. He didn't get in the box score. Did he have a sack? No. Did he have a pressure? No. Did he have a hurry? No. Did he hit the quarterback? No. Did he make a tackle? No. Did he have a TFL? No. Did he have a PBU? No. Did he have an interception? No. Did he have a forced fumble? No. Did he have a fumble recovery? No. I mean, he didn't do anything. I like Leonard Floyd. I love the motor. I love the football intellect. He didn't do anything. And then here's the other one. The 49ers do not have a safety who can cover. In a passing league, that's a bad thing to say. And that's where they're at. George Odom is a special teamer. He's not great in coverage. You've been watching Jair Brown. Jair Brown is very similar to Tayshaun Gibson. He's got great ball skills. He's great against the run, but he's not a great pass defender. He doesn't close down that space. So Malik Mustafa is very young. We don't know exactly what he is. Renardo Green played some free safety at Florida State, but he's played very little free safety this summer. The Niners did work out 3 slot corners because I think the plan is to move Renardo Green either to be the starting slot and move Demo outside, or leave Demo inside and move Renardo to the starting spot outside opposite Mooney. Either way, I think what you're going to see, maybe as soon as this week against the Rams, is Renardo Green on the field, Isaac Yadam on the sideline. So to me, if you want, why did they lose? They lost because their receivers got no separation, because their stars didn't do enough, because their special teams were colossally awful. A punt blocked, a muffed punt, because they lost because their O-line looked confused by Brian Flores' blitz packages. They lost because Collins and Hargrave were total zero non-factors. Never once did they ever interrupt or bother Sam Darnold. On the 97-yard Darnold to Jefferson touchdown, he could have stepped up 3 more steps. They were nowhere to be found. There was no pressure in the middle from Collins, none from Hargrave. They lost because Devondre Campbell took bad angles in the run game, and they couldn't stop the run. They lost because nobody opposite Nick Bosa did anything at defensive end, including Leonard Floyd. And they lost because they can't cover at safety, and they had Jefferson running by 2 safeties down the middle of the field. And I just think that that's really a problem spot that you're going to see the 49ers address right away. They're going to address this thing right away. Because Renardo Green is a good player and he's sitting on the bench. And I don't think he's going to be sitting on the bench long. I think you're going to see Renardo Green. Now, the question I would have is, do you give him Lenore's spot inside, or do you give him Yadam's spot outside? And I think they're probably going to give him Yadam's spot outside. He's been practicing an awful lot outside, but that's something to watch for sure. All right, let's do this. Let's take a 30-second timeout on Niners Nightly. When we come back, Nick Hamilton is going to join us. I'm really fired up to have Nick on the show. He's from Nightcast Media down in Southern California, and we'll talk a little bit about the matchup that we're going to see on Sunday. The Rams are desperate. The 49ers are feeling pretty desperate, too, after losing to the Vikings. We'll touch base and talk about the matchup next with Nick Hamilton as we continue on Niners Nightly. All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly, and we welcome in Nick Hamilton. When Nick is covers the Rams, and he covers them for Nightcast Media, and he's with us to break down the matchup. Nick, thanks for a few minutes. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Larry, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you cover the Rams, and tell us a little bit about Nightcast Media for people who maybe don't follow you or would love to follow you on YouTube. Let them know where they can catch you.
Yeah, I've been covering the Rams since 2019 when they went to the Super Bowl in Atlanta that year, and then just started covering the Rams ever since that magical Super Bowl year in Los Angeles when they won a championship in their building with arguably one of the greatest halftime shows with Dr. Dre and Snoop.
Yes. Oh my God, that was incredible.
And so Nightcast Media, we cover sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. Our moniker is where sports, entertainment, lifestyle, and culture square up. And we do it from a perspective where we have people of color and all walks of life to be able to share their stories and have a voice where otherwise maybe mainstream or anybody else won't give them a voice. So we make sure we amplify their voices in that regard. But covering the Rams has been very, very interesting since that Super Bowl year. So it's going to be a very interesting season so far, and it will be in weeks to come.
Well, why don't we get right to kind of the elephant in the room, which is that the Rams have not been able at all to stop the run this year. And yet they traded Ernest Jones this summer to the Titans. And for whatever reason, Ernest Jones, I think, led them in tackles last year. He had 145 tackles. He was their best inside linebacker against the run. He showed up this summer in camp and said, I want to be traded. Sometimes teams ignore that. The Rams did not. They traded him to our good buddy Rand Carthon, the general manager of the Titans. And here we are 2 weeks in, and I don't know that was a wise move. I mean, Detroit ran for 5.3 a carry. Arizona just put up 40, and they ran for 5.8 a carry. And the Rams' run defense really looks like a central issue with that football team. What happened there where a guy that they very much needed demanded to be sent elsewhere? What happened there?
I think it was more of a business decision when you look at it overall. I think when you look at what Ernest Jones, because I even spoke with head coach Sean McVay about Ernest Jones, about his leadership, his approach to the field, and how guys in the locker room pretty much galvanized around, especially the younger guys, where he led with his actions, not necessarily always with his words, which is something that for a young guy you don't always see, because we always see the flash, we always see the bravado, but Ernest Jones did his work on the field. Obviously, the Los Angeles Rams also lost Aaron Donald, a future Hall of Famer, three-time Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl champion. So that's a huge gaping hole that they're not able to fill. Then you go ahead and trade off Ernest Jones for a bag of Doritos and a can of Coca-Cola. That's still a head scratcher to me. But when you look at this Rams run defense, I mean, yeah, you're right. They gave up over 231 yards against Arizona last week. Arizona, I mean, James Conner carved them up like a Thanksgiving turkey. I mean, he had his way every which way, but trying to stop James Conner. It was difficult for the Rams to do in their 41-10 onslaught loss against the Arizona Cardinals. And I don't think it's going to be that much different this week if they don't shore things up. They have a lot of young guys on defense. Obviously, a lot of guys that are hurt. John Johnson III is now on IR, which was a huge blow to their secondary. When I look at the pass rush with Jared Verse, Michael Hoyt, Kobe Turner, Michael Young, those guys have definitely got to step up, and they've got to apply pressure to Brock Purdy. I know Brock Purdy does not succumb to pressure very well. As we saw last week against the Minnesota Vikings, he was sacked 6 times. And so when you look at, Trent Williams was sleeping on the job last week. And hopefully, if the Rams are lucky, Trent Williams will continue to sleep on the job. I highly doubt that very seriously. Trent Williams is one of the best in the business at his position. So they're going to have their work cut out for them. But that run defense, I don't know if it's going to show up in a week's time after the shellacking that they took on the road. But it's definitely got to improve at some space when it comes to going up against the 49ers. And you know how intense that rivalry is between Kyle Shanahan and head coach Sean McVay. So it's definitely going to be a battle nonetheless.
Yeah, two guys that used to work together in Washington. It's funny, that first game I watched, and I thought the Rams looked great against Detroit. They came out, they threw it a ton to Cooper Kupp. I think they targeted him 21 times in week 1, and which was a lot more than I thought he was going to get the ball. But Puka had the knee, and I didn't realize Puka had the bum knee. So Puka goes on the IR, and then in game 2 against Arizona, it looked like Cooper Kupp suffered some kind of an injury, and he was spotted in a walking boot after the game. And, they just lost Puka, and now they've lost Kupp, and they just scored only 10 points against the Cardinals. And obviously the Rams are desperate. What do you think? I mean, I know I've heard great things from my scouting buddies about Jordan Whittington, the Texas rookie, who, really had a good preseason and looked really good. I mean, he's big and fast and has a lot of talent. They targeted him 17 times in the preseason. He caught 11 balls for 126 yards. What do you think? I mean, with no Puka and no Kupp, is it time for the Jordan Whittington show, or do you think it's a run heavy plan with Kyron? What do you think the McVay offensive plan is going to be?
I think it could be a combination of both. I think I was very impressed with Jordan Whittington in training camp, as you mentioned also in the preseason. I think that kid can definitely get some burn this week. But the good news is, I mean, obviously the several old linemen were out last week for the Rams against the Arizona Cardinals. But from what I've been told, Alaric Jackson is going to be returning, which should help that O-line, especially with Kyron Williams being able to get some burn and be able to get some traction because that's going to be key. And, like I said, you can't count out Matthew Stafford. That guy's tough as nails. He's going to find a way, as he tried to in the Arizona game, as he did even in the Detroit game when they outplayed them in the second half. They just ran out of gas and unfortunately ran out of players. And so when I look at it, Kyron Williams is going to have to get started. He's going to have to get going. This is a kid that is special. I've always said that Kyron Williams is that running back that definitely is patient to be such a young running back, but also can see the holes, but they're going to have to create those holes for him to see. Also, they're going to have some blocking up front for him to be able to go off If you're going to be able to get the ball off to Jordan Whittington, as you mentioned, or even Demarcus Robinson,
Robinson, yeah.
when you're going to have to look at those two. Also, Tutu Atwell, who those are the two guys that you're going to have to really, really open up to when it comes to getting the ball off, because that's the only hope you have truly if you're the Los Angeles Rams. You're going to have to be able to move the ball and move the chains down the field, and those are the three guys that are able to help you move the chains.
No question about it. And I love Stafford. I think Stafford's a terrific quarterback, but he is a little older, and now he doesn't have his weapons. And it'll be interesting to see if the Niners blitz him or how they defend him. They usually try to get pressure with just their front four. What's your guess on how this season plays out? Because I mean, the Rams look like they could really be in a bad spot. And I've heard talk this week, with losing Puka and losing Cooper Kupp, that maybe, they'll try to call up Carolina and trade for Adam Thielen or something like that. And I've seen those Thielen to Los Angeles rumors already. But what do you think? I mean, if the Rams fall out of the playoff race early, there are teams around the NFL, there's 32 teams and there aren't 32 quarterbacks. Do you think the Rams would sell off on Stafford looking for some bounty of picks if they get to, I don't know, middle of October and it doesn't look like it's their year? Do you think they would trade him?
It's interesting. I've heard rumors about the Raiders potentially being interested in Matthew Stafford if that record does not reflect what they want it to reflect. They have a very difficult schedule ahead. Not only they have the 49ers at home, I do think they do have a winnable game against the Chicago Bears, who are trying to figure out what their identity is under a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. I do think the Rams can somehow pull off a win in Chicago, but then they have their back home against Green Bay. And at that point, Malik Willis, who's been absolutely incredible under center for the Green Bay Packers in Jordan Love's absence, I don't doubt Malik Willis at all. You cannot take Malik Willis lightly because Jordan Love is not there. The substitute is just as impactful as the regular everyday teacher, so to speak. So I think the Rams got to have their work cut out for them. They could easily be 1-4 by week 5's end. And I think if they continue to struggle, you might see some moves being made. But I don't know who's going to take that Matthew Stafford contract. That's the only thing that I question, is that hefty contract that Matthew Stafford signed and the Rams agreed to. Especially when they restructured his money. What team is going to really invest in a 36-year-old aging quarterback who last week was sacked 5 times, who's probably going to get sacked even probably 4 to 5 times this week when you got guys like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, and Javon Hargrave. I mean, those boys are not for play, especially when you don't have all your old linemen who are healthy, who can protect you, give you some protection up front. It's going to be a long day at the office. So I don't know how many teams would be interested in a 36-year-old quarterback. Not to say that Matthew Stafford isn't tough. Not to say that Matthew Stafford isn't a guy that you will want, a gunslinger that you will want on your team, but he's not moving the same in and out of the pocket as we've seen the last 2 weeks. So I don't know what's going on with Matthew Stafford as it pertains to his health, but his heart is as strong as an ox.
Yeah. It's funny, not funny for the Rams, but I mean, it's interesting when you look at we know there's a lot of injuries in football. But I mean, the Rams, or if the Rams had a great stretch of luck, they potentially could have been the second best team in this division. But we're going from week 2 to week 3. The Rams already on IR. Darius Williams, really good corner. Joe Notaboom, starting tackle. Darion Kendrick, pretty good corner. Tyler Higbee, very good tight end. Steve Avila, I think their best offensive lineman. Jonah Jackson, they just signed him in the offseason from Detroit. You just mentioned John Johnson III, starter at safety. Puka Nacua, and that's not it. They got 2 or 3 other guys on this list as well. That's a huge amount of premier talent. They just been ambushed out of the gate here with injuries, and in a lot of ways, if you're a Niner fan, you got to be thinking maybe the Niners caught the Rams at the right time. Let me ask you this. I know there's a rivalry between McVay and Shanahan. McVay's got what Shanahan wanted, which is the Super Bowl. He's got the Super Bowl ring. Shanahan, that's the holy grail. but Shanahan has beaten him, I think, like 8 of 10 or something like that.
Right.
He's had some ownage on McVay. What's your best guess? Is McVay, because McVay doesn't seem to me. I think McVay might have like a Jimmy Johnson type career where he's he's good. He's great. He's mercurial. They win a ring, maybe a second ring, and then I see him riding off into the sunset and doing TV, and he just seems like he's a guy that's going to do a TV gig at some point. What do you think? Is McVay? He's got started at such a young age. Do you think he's a short timer? Do you think he'll find his way to television, or do you think he's just getting warmed up and he'll be with the Rams for years?
I think he'll be with the Rams for years. I think football is too much in him. I mean, it's ingrained in his DNA. I think television is something he could potentially look at way down the road. But I don't think, first of all, Sean McVay is not a quitter. He's not going to, just because the things get tough. I mean, we looked at the 22 season. It couldn't get any tougher than the 22 season coming off of a Super Bowl. And then you're getting decimated with injury. You're getting decimated with losses. You're getting blown out. I mean, that was just a very, very terrible year. No different than what the year is starting out right now, unfortunately. But I think Sean McVay believes in those young guys. He believes in those guys, and those guys believe in him, most importantly. And I think they're looking to try to improve the situation, turn it around. I do believe that Sean McVay is going to be here for the next few years. I think he's committed to this team. I think Sean McVay also understands that, hey, there's ebbs and flows in football. You're going to be on top one moment, the next moment you're going to be under the ground. I think, unfortunately, the football guys have not been kind to this team when it comes to injury, because to your point earlier, I think not only the second best team, they could have been the best team in this division with all the talent that they've had, including Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, who came off an incredible rookie year last year as a 5th-round pick that people slept on, but they were quickly awakened by his presence and his play. So I think when you look at this team, if they were healthy for the most part, I think the Los Angeles Rams could be one of those top-tier teams in the NFC, let alone the NFC West, if healthy. Unfortunately, that's not the case, so I deal in reality. The reality is they're 0-2. They could potentially be 0-3 after Sunday and potentially go 1-3 Sunday after. So I think when you look at this Los Angeles Rams team, they're just trying to keep guys healthy. I think that's their whole thing, is trying to compete at the best way they know how to keep other guys from getting hurt, getting healthy. Whether they make a move in the next couple of weeks or not remains to be seen. That's up to Les Snead and those guys upstairs. But I think the Los Angeles Rams are definitely in a serious hole. And, man, is it dark and deep in that particular hole right now.
Yeah, no, seriously, they're buried. They're buried, and this is going to be they get a Niner team that's really hungry this week. What's your prediction? If we finish up with a prediction here, what do the Rams get off the canvas, or do the Niners beat them? Is it a close game? Is it a one-sided game? What are you predicting?
I think it's going to be a dogfight. I mean, because you look at the injuries the substantial injuries that the 49ers have too. I mean, you have Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be out for a significant period of time. Deebo Samuel with that calf. A calf is unpredictable like LA weather. You don't know what it's going to be actually. It could be something minor. Hopefully it is, because I hate to see a guy of his caliber be injured, for a majority of the season, not be able to compete. But with those two guys, that are incredible, important part of that offense. I think, it's going to be a dogfight. I think you're going to have, Brock Purdy going to avoid being sacked 5 or 6 times in a game? Is Trent Williams going to step up? Jordan Mason, who's been a complete breath of fresh air for the 49ers, has been incredible. Will Brandon Ayuk wake up out of his slumber, which potentially could happen, especially now with that depleted secondary of the Rams? That could potentially happen as well. Jawan Jennings, who showed up and showed out in many instances. So I think it's going to be a dogfight, but ultimately, unfortunately, with the Rams being depleted the way they are, I do think the 49ers do get this game at SoFi Stadium. I refuse to call it what you all call it up there in San Francisco. That is so utterly disrespectful.
Levi, they call it Levi South.
I refuse to say that. It is SoFi. It is LA. I love the Bay Area. I have family in the Bay Area. I got love for the Bay Area. LA to the Bay. But in this instance, I refuse to disrespect the Rams House Nation and Rams Nation. We're calling it that. It is SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. You better put some respect on that stadium.
How about this? Go ahead.
The same stadium that we won a championship and beat the 49ers in the
I
NFC
know. Believe
Championship
me,
game.
we
Uh-huh.
remember all too well.
Uh-huh.
How about this? We will call it SoFi. We will not call it Levi's if you guys promise that no matter how bad it gets this year for the Warriors, that you won't try coming for Steph Curry.
Listen, I want Steph Curry to stay in the Bay. I want him to retire a
Thank
Warrior. I
you.
have too
Thank
much
you.
respect for Steph Curry and that entire organization. Let me tell you this real quick. I
Sure.
love Steph Curry. I love what he's done also not just for the Warriors, but the city of Oakland and
Yeah.
those children and those school districts in the city of Oakland with Mr. Fab, who's also a rapper and an activist who's worked very closely with Steph Curry and his organization and Aisha Curry. So I have a lot of tremendous respect for Steph Curry. I would dare not want to poach him from the Bay Area. I think he's too impactful, not just what he does on the court, but what he does off the court in those various communities around the Bay Area and Oakland that desperately need his services and continue to benefit from his love and his assistance in those various areas. So no, I would love to see Steph Curry. When I think of the Chase Center, other than the Golden State Valkyries, and congratulations to the Golden State Valkyries.
That's right.
By the way.
That's right. We got the WNBA team.
There you go. So
they've got a V-shaped locker room, by the way. I just read that the other day. Yeah,
I love it.
I mean, and look what WNBA's the WNBA's had a big year this year, and this is a perfect time for the Bay Area to add a WNBA franchise because there's people that want to see those girls play, and it's a beneath the rim game. But you know what? If you appreciate basketball like I do, on all the different levels, I've coached it, reffed it, played it. And it's like, you know what? I can enjoy a below the rim game. I don't need everything to be, Jonathan Kuminga above the rim. I can enjoy a beneath the rim game. And that's what they play in the WNBA. And I've enjoyed a little WNBA this year. I got to admit.
Listen, it's exciting. I mean, you have Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. I mean, you have Asia Wilson, who's the head of the table when it comes to the WNBA. She's going to be visiting the Chase Center next season against the Valkyrie. I mean, you're going to see Brianna Stewart. I mean, Arike Gumbawale. I mean, you're going to see hopefully Brittany Griner, maybe Diana Taurasi if she doesn't retire this year.
Well, not only that, Nick, when I interviewed David Stern years ago, and I asked him, I said, what's your greatest accomplishment as the commissioner? And he said, you know what? We've done a lot of incredible things, but the number one thing is the creation of the WNBA. And I thought he was kind of just screwing with me at the time, but he's like, you know what? If you really think about it, the dream of being a pro basketball player was only a male dream. We just opened up the dream of I'm great at basketball. I want to be a pro basketball player to instead of half the population, the entire population. And when you look at it that way, you know what? I think he makes a very compelling point. And as somebody who has a daughter, she's not going to play in the WNBA. But you know what? I love to be able to look my daughter in the eye and say, you know what? If you want it, if you can dream it, you can do it. And you know what? If you're about it, you're about it. And so that's how I feel.
About the W is the fact that you don't have to be a player. You can be an executive. You can be a coach. You can be a scout. I mean, there's so many opportunities. Yeah. You could be director of player personnel. You can be on the social media team. Like there's so many opportunities for women in the WNBA that's been absolutely phenomenal. Plus, you got great players coming out. You got Paige Beckers coming out. You possibly have Flage coming out. And then a couple more years, you got the woman herself, Juju Watkins out of USC. She might be a Golden State Valkyrie.
I've never seen her play. I've never seen her play. I gotta check her out. Hey, Nick, tell people once again if they want to check out Nightcast Media, do they just type in Nightcast Media when they go onto YouTube and they'll find you?
NITECASTMEDIA, Nightcast Media, nightcastmedia.com. Also check us out. Subscribe to us on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/NHExperienceTV. Brand new. I mean, we got a lot of stuff in the world of entertainment, sports, culture, lifestyle. We have a lot of content. We'd love for you all to check out. Make sure you check me out on Instagram at Nick Hamilton LA, as well as on X at Nick Hamilton 213.
Nick, I love it, man. Hey, promise me this. When the Niners play the Rams later in the year, let's do this. Let's rekindle this. Let's do this again. And I'd love to have you on my YouTube channel, The Krueger Show. Maybe we'll hook something up on Sunday and get you on the post game because I love the way your breakdown. I love your analysis, and it'll be fantastic. Please come back and do it again with us when the Niners and Rams hook it up.
Hey, when you call, Larry, I'm gonna pick up on the first ring. I'm not gonna send it to voicemail. I got you.
Thank you, man. Have a great day. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Nick Hamilton, Nightcast Media. Cool guy. I like that. And you know what? I like what he said about the Rams. I see the exact same kind of game that Nick threw out there. I think on paper, it's easy to go, Niners are going to blow their doors off. But guess what? This is the NFC West. These are NFC West, this is a divisional opponent. So it's going to be a battle. So we'll leave it right there. But I liked him. And we're going to get him back when the Niners play the Rams later this year, and maybe we'll get him on the Krueger Show Sunday after the game. All right, we're going to take a 1 minute timeout. We're going to come back. We got another segment. We'll finish up the hour. I want to talk a little bit about KK45's comment about one legitimate concern about Kyle Shanahan. We'll do it next as we continue with Niners Nightly on the Sports Leaders YouTube channel. All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly as we take a quick timeout. That's the beauty of YouTube. You can take like a 15-second commercial. You can take a 20-second commercial. Or no commercial at all. Okay, I did its live stream this morning, and one of the chats came from a guy named KK45. And you know what? There's just so many people who get into this. I can't go there with you if you're one of these people that's like, Shanahan sucks. I can't go there. I can't go to Shanahan sucks. I'm sorry. I don't think that Shanahan is the greatest coach of all time. And if you have a legitimate complaint or criticism, bring it. I mean, I'm not gonna bury it or not address it. This is, the 49ers are big time. You can rip the 49ers as long as you're credible. I want to hear it. If you're not credible and you just, Shanahan sucks and they're not going to be good till they get rid of Shanahan. Okay. I'm not with you. But if you have something intelligent to say, that's criticism of Kyle Shanahan, bring it. We'll discuss it. We'll analyze it. We'll freaking dissect it. And KK45 had one earlier today. And I don't have it in front of me, just kind of the meat and potatoes of basically what he said, if I can summarize. He basically said that he likes Kyle Shanahan. He thinks Kyle Shanahan's a good coach. And he's not saying get rid of Kyle Shanahan. But he does find it interesting that the teams that Kyle Shanahan can't beat, he can never beat. And he brought up the fact that Shanahan's 0-2 against Flores, the former Dolphin, now Viking defensive coordinator. Brian Flores is 2-0 against Shanahan. Shanahan is also never beaten Schwartz. He's 0-4 against Schwartz. He doesn't, and part of the reason is I think he doesn't like going against the wide nine. Schwartz loves the wide nine. So he's 0-2 against Brian Flores. He's 0-4 against Schwartz. He's 0-5 against Spags, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs. 0-2, and of course 0-5 and 0-2 in Super Bowls against Spags. But overall, Shanahan is like 35-16, maybe 35-17 over the last 3 years. They've been to the Super Bowl, 2 times in the last 4 or 5 years. They've been to the NFC Championship game almost every year. They're one of the NFL's better teams. They're always among the favorites to win the Super Bowl. But I do find it interesting. And KK45 says, does it bother you that Shanahan, how do you make sense of the fact that he can't beat Flores, he can't beat Schwartz, he can't beat Spags? All right, well, first of all, Spags is attached to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So let's not pretend that it's just Spags. It's Spags and Mahomes and Reid. Okay. And Spags is a fantastic defensive coordinator. I mean, there's no question about it. And you know what? Players win these games. And I thought L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie were the reason that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So I would just say with Spags, it has a lot to do with Mahomes and a lot to do with Reid. With Schwartz, I think it has a lot to do with the wide nine. And I think the wide nine really bothers Kyle's offense, which is why he liked the wide nine as his defensive, package of choice. And then for Flores, I think it's the combination of the blitz package and the zone. I mean, and the Brock Purdy struggle this week was not at all surprising. Why? Because if you're playing quarterback, one of the hardest things to do is to, at the line of scrimmage, under fire, as the rushers are coming at you, figure out what side, what kind of a rush is this? Are they rushing 3 and dropping 8? Are they rushing 4 and they're dropping 7? Are they rushing 4 but it's not the 4 that you think? Are they rushing 5 but it's not the 5 that you think? Are they rushing 6? Are they rushing 4 and they've got 2 guys kind of lurking off the line of scrimmage and they're looking for a delayed blitz? Are they working games up front? I mean, there's all kinds of options and variables. And I just think that when you're Brock and you got to sit there and decipher real quick, do I go to my hot route because they're sending 6 rushers at me? I got to find that hot route and I got to find it now. So that's a challenge. And then they're alternating that with downs where they rush 3 and drop 8. And now you're not only not looking for the hot route, you have to show incredible patience to go through your progressions and scan the entire field and look for that maybe small hole in a coverage where there's 8 guys dropped into it. So the combination of every down, it's a new rush plan with a whole assortment of new rushers with a new concept. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, sometimes 4 and delayed blitzes, coming from all kinds of angles. I mean, and then you mix in talent. And the Vikings had some pretty good talent coming after the quarterback. I think it's that. I don't think it's anything magical. I think for Flores, he puts a ton of pressure on the quarterback, and let's be honest, Jimmy didn't play well against the Niners. Coverage was awful against Fitzpatrick a few years ago when they played him the first time, and this time it wasn't a whole lot better. So I think Flores puts tons of heat on the quarterback and tons of pressure on the quarterback and really mentally attacks the quarterback. I think Schwartz, that wide 9, bothers Shanahan's scheme. And I think Spags, that's more about not Spags. I think in the Super Bowl, it was about McDuffie and Snead and Mahomes and Reed. So there you go. But good comment from KK45. And by the way, for those going, hey, Krug, ask Shanahan tough questions. Oh, I do. Believe me, I do. I ask him tough questions all the time. But I will say this. The reason I'm not with the group saying get rid of Shanahan, 1 is because I have a brain. 2, I remember the Tom Sula era. I remember the Niners having like a bunch of lousy running backs going for 100 yards a game every week in the Chip Kelly era. Jacquizz Rodgers just went for 100. Bilal Powell just went for 100. Sean Drone just went for 100. I mean, do you guys remember the bad running backs that went for 100 in the Chip Kelly era? The Niners gave up like 7 or 8 straight 100-yard rushers in a row. They could not stop the run. So I don't know. Maybe if I couldn't remember Chip Kelly, if I couldn't remember Kyle Shanahan, or if I couldn't remember Jim Tom Sula, if I couldn't remember those 2 failed eras of Niner football, which preceded Shanahan, then maybe I'd be with some of the people going, man, Shanahan ain't it. But I just think he just hasn't gotten it done. And if you said to me, is Shanahan a great coach? Yeah, he's a great coach. How do you kind of make sense of his career to this point? I would say he is Andy Reid before Mahomes and Andy Reid before Kansas City. And now he's got his quarterback in Brock Purdy. And he's got the roster now. It took him a few years to build it up, took him a few years to find the quarterback. Now he's got the quarterback, he's got the roster. So I personally think that Kyle Shanahan is going to do in San Francisco what Andy Reid has done in Kansas City. I think he's going to win a Super Bowl, and my guess is multiple Super Bowls. But it hasn't happened yet. And there are a lot of Niner fans that are going to hold Kyle's feet to the fire until it happens. And I understand that as well. And that's okay. It's okay to hold the coach's feet to the fire as long as it's reasonable. As long as it's not just like, he sucks and he needs to go. Okay. I need something more than that. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm now in the camp of if you think Kyle's got to go, that's fine. I'll gladly entertain that discussion in any forum. But it's easy to say he's got to go. It's way harder to say who's coming in. It's easy to take a sledgehammer to your, Formica countertops and old cabinets and destroy your kitchen. That's easy. It's hard to design the new kitchen and put in the granite and the brand new cabinets and build the thing up. Any jackass can tear stuff down. It takes somebody skilled to build it back up. So just remember that. You might be able to chase out Kyle Shanahan at some point, and you might feel good saying he needs to go and he's got to go. But then what? Then what do you do? Okay, even if I don't agree with that, but even if I did, okay, he's out. Now who's next? Exactly. That's the problem, because it's hard to find the guy who's going to be next and who's going to be better and that you could get, and that's going to be an improvement, and who's the general manager and how they're going to get along. And is it all, there's just a lot of factors here. So I would say show a little patience for Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, and I think they're on the verge of getting it done. I do believe they will get it done as a tandem here in San Francisco. So anyway, that does it for our Niners Nightly hour. It came and went very, very fast. I'm back with you tomorrow. And tomorrow we're on the radio because the Giants will be playing in the daytime. So we'll be on tomorrow night at 6:00 on the radio. Looking forward to it. Friday, we're back on YouTube. Thanks to all of you in the chat. And of course, thanks to our guest, Nick Hamilton, and tune in tomorrow night at 6:00 for more of Niners Nightly. Mitchell and Ness says, Larry, your reaction to what Gronk said. We'll have to hit that tomorrow. 49er Red Zone says, great interview. Thank you very much. Enjoyed Nick quite a bit. Hope you guys are enjoying Niners Nightly. We also have this one. Someone said, Nicotina, my good buddy, says, what's going on with Javon Hargrave? Why is he not producing? I just know that he's not producing. I don't know why he's not producing, but I'll say this: it's frustrating to watch. Hopefully, he gets it going pretty soon, because it might be time to go to Jordan Elliott as a starter if Hargrave doesn't get it going, like immediately, like Sunday against the Rams at SoFi. All right, that does it for us. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.